Your go-to sports talk from your own backyard. This is SS Tampa Bay.
Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Zach Seifert along with my friend Harrison Smadjevitz, and we are back with another episode of SS Tampa Bay. Harrison, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing pretty good, Zach, and I just gotta say, I'm super jealous of that shirt of yours.
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
I picked it up just this week. Gronkowski and the new colors, the new design. I'm pretty stoked about it. Found it at Dick's Sporting Goods along with a couple of Tom Brady shirts. No jerseys yet, still waiting on them, but I got the shirt at least.
Yeah, like we talked about in last week's episode, we got our Brady jerseys coming in the mail. I went to go try to find the Gronk shirt after you sent me that one in a text, and Gainesville doesn't have anything Bucs. It's a little bit disappointing. I mean, I get it, Jacksonville's an hour and change away, but you would think, North Florida, but, I'm not a marketing expert. There's a reason for it.
Well, if you ever feel like switching your loyalties, you can always go pick up a Gardner Minshew jersey over there at the Gainesville Dick's Sporting Goods. So that's always there for you. But Harrison, while we're here, we are here to talk about Tampa Bay sports, not Jacksonville. So, throw your Minshew jersey fantasies out the window and get focused in because we got a nice little chunk to talk about this week.
We absolutely do. We're going to get started first in the National Hockey League. We're getting a little bit closer and at the same time a little bit farther away from returning to play. We'll start with the bad news first. The Tampa Bay Lightning had a couple of cases of coronavirus. They had to shut down the facility. They're testing more players. It looks rough, but I think they can bounce back from it. Hopefully it's only a few cases. Here's my tip.
It was 5 total members of the team. You had 3 players, 2 staff members. They shut down Amalie Arena, the Brandon Sports Complex that they have over there, just 10, 15 minutes away from downtown Tampa. And, like you said, it's disappointing. Obviously, the numbers are spiking in Florida each and every day, more cases of coronavirus. And not only Lightning, there were a few other teams that tested positive players, but we'll get to that later. But with the Lightning, it sucks disrupting, them kind of getting on the ice, getting back to work, but that's life right now,
Yeah, and I mean, entering phase 2, it's rough, but it's kind of expected to have a couple of players who have cases. We're testing more people than ever. You're going to get a lot more asymptomatic guys. When they've been out and about, they're not quarantined yet. A couple of them are going to contract it. It's rough, but listen, you clean up the facility. Anyone who tests negative, they can go back to practicing. And in 2 weeks, when they've tested negative twice, those players can get back to joining them and still be ready before training camp starts on July 10th. It's rough. Like, we sometimes act like athletes for some reason are immune to things. Like, for some reason, when especially big name athletes suddenly you're like, oh, suddenly this is 10 times worse. But like when it was no-name Ottawa Senators bum, everyone was like, oh, it's fine to play. It's stupid. Like,
Ottawa's not one of the 24 teams in the playoffs anyway.
You know what I'm saying, though? It's like if they had never named Austin Matthews in a report, if they just said random Toronto Maple Leafs player tests positive, no one would have thought anything. They would have just said, you know what, it happens. Let's get to playing. But when you name someone, suddenly everyone's like, just shut it down.
Well, it's the same sort of thing as, with the NFL. Like, what if Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes test positive right now for the coronavirus? All of a sudden, big name player, it just kind of escalates that a little bit more. But like you said, a player like Austin Matthews, it all of a sudden becomes a bigger deal. But I'll say this when it comes to the NHL. And I think the same thing applies to the NBA, is I don't think this at all is going to impact the return to play plans. And I'll tell you why. So the thing with the NHL and the NBA, obviously that's important, is the fact that there will be a hub area, hub cities. In the case of the NBA, it is Disney's Wide World of Sports. It's here in Orlando, just an hour away from us here in Tampa, not far. With the NHL, it looks like it's going to be Las Vegas and one other city. The NHL did this week announce that with the Players Association, they've narrowed it down to 6 possibilities for hub cities. Then they expect to have their 2 by the end of this upcoming week. So that's important. One's probably going to be Las Vegas, and from what I'm understanding, it's the second hub city is what they want it to be, either Toronto, Edmonton, or Vancouver, they'd rather have it in Vancouver or Edmonton, but Toronto is an option. But what's important about these hub cities is that it's going to be a much tighter bubble for these players, significantly. Like you mentioned with phase 2, they're out and about, they're doing their thing, they're with their families, they're with their friends, they're going to restaurants, they're not quarantined. And we don't know if in Florida if they're wearing masks. There's not really a restriction yet. They're announcing restrictions for Tampa this week, but not yet.
Yeah, they already have them in Gainesville too. Like if anywhere in Alaska County, if you go into an institution, you have to wear it. And I'm totally fine with that, by the way. I wear a mask everywhere.
I think it's important.
Yeah, and we all know Vegas is going to be one of the options. Any hotel you lock them in, they're going to have something to do. And talking about when it comes to cases, if they're in phase 4, locked away, and there are cases, I can understand 100% that is problematic, because the whole idea is that they don't have it, they're all cut off from the rest of the world, and then suddenly there's a breakout within the hotel. That's when you actually have legitimate discussions of like, can we go on? You'll probably find a way to go on anyway, but at that point, I at least understand it, because then something went wrong in the planning.
Yeah, like you said, the plan for these players and the coaching staffs and the training staffs and the medical staffs, all of it, is to be cut off from the rest of the world. But with the NHL and the NBA, they want them to be in a significantly tighter bubble than they are now. So while there's cases that are positive right now in phase 2, it doesn't worry me in the return to play just because of how tighter these bubbles are. They want them cut off from everything. They, like we discussed last week, they're going to have hotels, they're going to have transportation to and from rinks, practice, games, yada, yada. And what's important is they want them to have forms of entertainment in the vicinity of where they're staying. With Vegas, you have that in your own hotels. You have casinos, you have theaters, you have, performing arts, freaking.
Yeah, those hotels are basically
things like that.
cities. Like those hotels are designed for the fact that Las Vegas is hot. You don't always want to go outside because you don't want to pass out from a heat stroke. The hotel is a destination. You can be in the MGM hotel for an entire week, never leave it, and have a Las Vegas experience. Those
Exactly.
are going to be just fine in there. The players who are in Vancouver or even wherever, it's not going to be as fun, but they'll be fine. I think there's got to be a hotel in Vancouver they can do something with.
You would like to think, and that's the thing with this whole coronavirus outbreak for the Lightning, is that the players will recover. They'll be ready for training camp. The NHL is holding off on bringing players back from overseas right now. Like Victor Hedman, I know, went home to Sweden, so I'm not sure if he's back with the team yet. But they're holding off until they control, like they are able to clean the facilities and all that stuff, and they're able to kind of control it and get these players back. But with how tight the bubble is going to be in these subsidies for these players and these staffs, with them only really being around each other, going to and from the rinks in their hotel and to and from restaurants that the NHL basically rents out for months at a time for their players only, and for these entertainment venues for their players only, they're going to rent it out and spend the money. You'd like to think that the risk is extremely minimized so that it's not a problem.
And it shouldn't be. And I mean, you do, in a sense, I think location does matter a lot when picking a hub city. If it's not Vancouver or Alberta, or not, well, the province of Alberta, it could be Edmonton or Calgary. Just, flexing my Canadian geography right there.
There you go.
It has to be Western Canada. Like, I know we talked about Toronto last week, and right now, I still think it's a bad idea. Ontario is second behind Quebec in Canada for cases. It's well over a couple thousand at this point. Vancouver, at least British Columbia, is down to like the tens in active cases. And of course, it could spike. I haven't checked the Johns Hopkins map in quite a bit, so it could have changed. But it's one of the better options. Like if you're trying to quarantine players and minimize the amount of exposure to the coronavirus, you kind of have to pick a place where there's an arena where there is minimal exposure. I'm not saying go to the Yukon or anything like that. That's ridiculous. But there are civilization-related options that you can choose from.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But with that, Harrison, not only were the Lightning the one of the teams in Tampa that was exposed this week and had some positive cases, we had three other teams with cases in the Tampa Bay area alone, and that's not counting the heavy amount of cases at college campuses, LSU, Clemson, other teams, heavy amount of cases. But there were three in the Tampa Bay area: the Philadelphia Phillies in Clearwater, Toronto Blue Jays in Dunedin, and our very hometown Tampa Bay Buccaneers had 2 players test positive along with 1 assistant coach this week.
Yeah, and again, just after a few months of this, it gets really scary. You think we're possibly out of the woods, and suddenly there's spikes in cases. Here's a huge problem, too, for the fact that we're opening things up. And I don't mind that we're reopening things. It's just that it gave people the false idea that the coronavirus just kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
We had kept the mindset that it didn't. One, I don't think we would be as worried that a couple of cases happened because we would be expecting it. And 2, I think maybe a couple of them could have been prevented as well. And for the Bucs, it's not that big of an issue, Well, I mean, of course, it's a big issue. You can get severely, affected by this virus. It can kill you. And in regards to playing football, is not that big of a concern because football's not for a few months. Now, if you're the Phillies and the Blue Jays, honestly, we might as well just segue into the topic at this point of baseball.
Yeah.
They're trying to get a season off the ground, and if either side's looking for an excuse not to play, here's one.
Yeah, absolutely. And, staying on the topic of the MLB, obviously we had everything this past week that happened. For those that don't know, Rob Manfred basically went from saying we are 100% having a season just, days before he made the announcement saying, I'm not sure that we're going to have a season. He said that 3 days after he said we're 100% having a season during the MLB draft, he went complete 180. And then it looked like we were going to have no baseball. Then he had a meeting with the head of the MLBPA, and all of a sudden we get an announcement from John Heyman how do you pronounce it?
I think it's Heyman, but also Jeff Passan said something. Ken Rosenthal broke some news.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, we got baseball back. Everyone's like, there's an agreement in place between the union and the MLB for a season. And all of a sudden, that's a lie. And now we're back to the negotiating table. So we don't know if we're going to have baseball or not. It's looking a little more positive than it did when Manfred was like, oh, well, I don't know if we're going to have a season now. It looks better, but we don't know.
It's been a massive seesaw. This is the only time within all these negotiations that real negotiations are actually going on. They could have started this 5 weeks ago and been debating simply the number of games and some grievances for 5 weeks. Because now we're at the point where they're debating the number of games and you are actually running out of time.
Yeah.
And I did think the deal that Tony Clark and Rob Manfred, as much as I think they're both off their rocker, they created what I thought was a pretty reasonable deal. I didn't mind the 70-game proposal from the Players League either, but I do think that was the point where they finally overplayed their hand. They had been the ones who were the good guys in the public eye. There was a deal in place between the two representatives of both sides that made a negotiation. And then suddenly the players were like, here's our turn to be a pain.
Yeah. And, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but, up until this point, it looked kind of, from the eyes of the fans, it's kind of like, oh, well, this is Manfred's fault and the owner's fault. The players kind of come out of this as the good guys. But after this week, like you said, they overplayed their hand a little bit. They're acting as the pain now. All of a sudden, the fans have kind of turned on the players as well. And now it's just kind of like, well, we hate all of you. You're all selfish. We hate you all. We're not watching baseball.
Yeah, and I still put on baseball stuff for this show today. I went classic throwback Devil Rays. Listen, we're going to keep talking baseball no matter what, but it is reaching a bit of a problematic point.
Yeah.
Just because the players have reached a point where they're just trying to make a decision on how do they want things to look like when they look back. Do they want it to be that they accepted a deal from the owners and they gave in? Or do they want it to be that the big bad owners imposed a season on them of X amount of games. The whole thing's just, it's reached a point where the owners basically have done it. They finally gave in, added more games. Now the players just want to be troublesome. Here's how I've described it when I was interviewed for something else and other facets of me just giving my opinion out there. It can only be described as headache inducing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's really the only way to say it at this point, is that it's been so much back and forth of proposals, deals that we thought were in place that weren't. I mean, negotiations, 100% season, now we're not. Fans are frustrated, and they have every valid excuse to be frustrated. But Harrison, I'm gonna sort of change our line of thinking here for a second. I kind of want to change what we're talking about more so from the headache that is these discussions with the MLB, and talk about the logistics of an actual season. And I want to talk about this as it pertains to the NFL as well, because we just talked about the NHL and the NBA and how those return to play, plans aren't really in danger from these positive tests. But in my point of view, in my thinking, I would say that the NFL and the MLB, their seasons are a bit more threatened by the all of a sudden rise in coronavirus positive tests. I mean, within their own leagues as well as just in the general public.
No, you're absolutely right. And the big thing is, neither of those leagues will do hub cities. I get the NFL, it's a lot harder to do, a lot more players. You can't quarantine that 90 people per team in one area. It just doesn't work. Baseball, they had a whole proposal. They'd play in Arizona on lockdown, but then the players didn't want to be away from their families. And I get that. But for a group of players that basically were all about what about my health? This Arizona solution would have been a huge way to solve that. Going home, yeah, you're with your family, but you can also catch the coronavirus, give it to your family. Whereas at least if something happens in Arizona, you don't give it to them at home. It just doesn't make sense when they're talking about, they say they care about their health, but they turn down one of the bubble ideas. It just shows the whole thing is about money.
Now, Harrison, I'm gonna stop you for a second because, obviously when you talk about the Arizona and the Florida plans, that was like a month or two ago where those were being talked about as possibilities.
Maybe 2 months ago at this point.
Now, I'll say this, at the point in time where these discussions were ongoing, where those hub states were a potential option, I'll say this. It seemed like a good idea. Both states had the facilities, obviously, from spring training to where they could house all their teams, have minimal travel, and kind of do that thing. But I'll say this, hindsight is 2020, and if you want to look at it now, Florida and Arizona are of the two states in the entire country where coronavirus cases are spiking the most. In fact, you might say they're the most two dangerous states in the country right now in terms of the coronavirus. So with that, I would say right now, it's not the best idea to sit there and do something like that. But at the point in time where it was being discussed, it looked like a potentially good option. So I will agree with you in that sense. But right now, it's probably a good thing that they didn't necessarily agree to go with those hub states, just based on the current, situations in Florida and Arizona.
I agree with the aspect that not Florida, not Arizona, but I meant the concept of the hub in general. They could always move to Texas. California is getting a little bit better. They could do something in LA. There's so many baseball fields in Southern California. Oh my goodness, they could have a different field every game. Or listen, if they really had to, they could go to Montana or something where they have 25 active cases or some really insanely
remote place.
There are options for bubbles, and that's all I have to say. I get no longer Florida and Arizona, even though those are the most ideal bubble locations. The NBA is now having, they're questioning, or at least the players are playing in Orlando because of the spikes. That's been a talk on ESPN. That's the only reason I question it, is because there are still bubble options. And the players basically said, we don't want that, but at the same time, they were all about their health. I don't buy that.
Yeah, I would tend to say that that's definitely a valid point for sure. It just worries me going forward with the NFL and the MLB. I mean, particularly the NFL. We talk about the Bucs having cases. We talk about coaching staffs and players, obviously, and then all the in college football, you got Clemson and LSU with major amounts of a major number of players getting cases. I think LSU had like 30 and Clemson had 23 players test positive for the coronavirus. So it worries me about what's going to happen this year with football. What if the situation's not better in 3 months? What if we're still having a constant number of coronavirus cases happening? How do you protect your players from that if it's a contact sport? You're not going to play in a mask. So I mean, training camp is just a month away. We don't know what it's going to look like. But at the same time, without a vaccine, it's hard to imagine the NFL coming up with a protocol that completely guards these players off and keeps them safe when they're still going home at night. I mean, in not being, I guess, like the NHL and the NBA, in a very tight bubble. There is no bubble for these leagues. You're traveling from city to city, game to game. So you really how do you keep these players safe? Obviously, you can have protocols for the locker room, for the facility, for stadiums. You might play without fans. But at the same time, does that necessarily keep you protected every second of every day? What if you go home and your wife comes home from work and she somehow contracted it? She gives it to you, and then the next day of practice, you give it to 20 other players. I mean, because while you're on the field, you breathe on someone or something happens like that because you're not wearing a mask in practice.
Football is it's probably the most contact sport of all. Well, the NBA has the least amount of clothing on. But in football, you come up at the line of scrimmage, you're up in everyone's faces.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem. And my other issue with football is that sometimes they act like they're invincible because they're the NFL and college football. Now, college football is an entirely different issue because they're putting amateurs' lives on the line, who they're not even getting paid for it, and some other issues when it comes to the fact that they're not professional athletes. That's a whole different argument for another time. It's still really bad what's happening in Clemson and LSU, by the way.
Yeah.
That could completely alter the ACC and the SEC's decision on how they want to do a season. The Pac-12 still doesn't know if it wants to play this year.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Football, they have that mindset of, we're the NFL, we're invincible, we will do everything as planned with our fans. And I'm thinking, stop it. There's not going to be any spectators at a football game in 2020. Well,
that's definitely possible.
The Super Bowl and the playoffs from last season, but for the rest of 2020, you're not going to have a full, the Cowboys aren't getting all 80,000 fans for a game. Maybe at best you get 10,000 because the NFL is probably going to refuse to play in front of 0 fans.
It's hard to with the money on the line. And it's the same thing for the NCAA when we talk about college football, just from the cash cow that it is for all these universities that are involved. I mean, if you look at the numbers, there is so much money. These universities cannot run, at least their athletic programs can't run without, college football. I think I read the other day, I think each universities or the NCAA in total is going to lose $3 billion total if there's no college football this season. And they're going to lose $1 billion of that if they don't sell tickets. So, I mean, there's just so much money involved that it's almost like they have to go on just to save themselves.
But that's the thing. And I know some schools have already dropped a couple of programs, and it's really sad to see. But you also have to think of it from this point of view. And yeah, I totally get it. Only 3 sports are profitable. You have football, men's basketball, and baseball. And some other aspects, maybe some other sports are profitable, but those are the top 3 that will have a shot at making money.
And even at many universities, baseball is not profitable for a lot of them.
Exactly. It depends on the school. The SEC schools, 100%. But here's the thing too. You might decide you're trying to save other athletic programs, but you also run the risk of having football players get killed from this virus, and then you have that to linger on for the rest of time, where the NCAA says, no, we're going to go on, and then someone kills over. keep in mind, like, and I know I'm talking about a completely different pandemic here, but it is a fact that the 1919 Stanley Cup Finals were canceled because the entire Montreal Canadiens team got the Spanish flu and one of their players died a few days later. The idea of the show must go on doesn't always lead to good results, and there is precedent for that argument.
Absolutely, and I'm not here to dispute that, because obviously it's a huge balance between economics and health. Because on one hand, you're like, we don't want to be responsible for any of one of these players dying on our watch because we got them on the field or on the ice or on the court. But on the other hand, how much more risk, or how much more do you lose if you don't have a season? How much more do you lose if you don't have fan stands? It's a hard balance. It's a very tight, it's a very tight line that you don't want to cross. I mean, it's finding that balance, and I don't know that these leagues are going to be able to find that balance. It's extremely hard to.
No, you're 100% right. And I think the unfortunate situation is, even if college football is played this season, there's going to be a lot of programs that are shut down, never to come back, or it won't come back for a long time. And a lot of it's because a lot of these schools don't have rainy day money. Florida thankfully does. Scott Strickland, thought ahead accordingly, and a lot of SEC schools did too. But most of these schools with athletic programs, the money they get immediately goes into paying for something, because football is that big. I mean, some schools can't afford to have football. They don't make enough money for athletic programs. Yeah. They have basketball, baseball, and that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Which, like we said, that's what makes it so difficult for a lot of these schools to go on without a football season, is because football pays for so much. And, if you don't get that revenue, I mean, a lot of your athletic institutions are going to shut down. And heck, even football pays for a lot of the school funds for a lot of these things. They pay for a lot of things for the university. So it's almost like the NCAA is having or a lot of these universities having their hand forced in the idea that the show must go on, or else you're going to lose a lot of your money for not only your athletic programs, but for your school on the whole. So like I said, it's extremely tight. It's a tightrope that you got to walk, and it's hard. And I just really don't know what's going to come of it. Thankfully, we do have 2.5, 3 months until these seasons are set to begin. But with the NFL, training camp's a month away. It's right around the corner until these guys got to get back to these facilities and start preparing for the season. But, I'm not sure what the landscape's going to look like a month from now, and I don't know how it's going to work.
You really don't. It's day by day. And I don't know if you knew this, but because of the coronavirus, some schools, like the schools as a whole, have completely shut down. Like like D2 private schools are never coming back. Like, it goes beyond the sport. And like, even if you said football's paying for some programs, if they don't have that money, it could mean the school shuts down. And to get back to where you were going with your talking points, yeah, we really don't know where this is going. They're talking about second waves, like projected in November. For all we know, it spikes in July and August, and then suddenly it's just gone forever. Like, there is probably going to be a point where the coronavirus strains get, they evolve to get weakened enough where it goes away. That might not happen, by the way. I'm just going based off what happened with the Spanish flu, where at one point it just disappeared. But we don't know. And
we don't know. And a vaccine is still a long ways off. I think I read like the earliest that we could have one is January.
You have to hope that, one, it does show up at all. How effective is it in the sense that, like, how long it lasts? I just want to establish vaccine are 100% effective. I'm not trying to say anything anti-vaxxer that's stupid. I'm just saying, is it going to be like an annual vaccine, or is it going to be permanent? Like, is it going to be like a flu vaccine, or is it like polio where you get it when you're a baby and you never have to worry about it? Those are questions we have to ask too, because let's say someone misses the shot and they get it, and that could cause problems with other players who might have not been healthy enough immunity-wise to get the vaccination themselves. That's what herd immunity is about.
Yeah.
Record, we're not doctors, but these are important things to talk about.
Yeah, and it's something that these leagues got to address. They got to talk about, and it's going to be extremely hard to figure out. And same thing with the MLB. We talk about the NFL and college football, but with the MLB, you're going city to city. The Rays are going to Boston. They're going to New York. They're going to Baltimore, Toronto. They're going a bunch of different places. And even if it's a 60, 70 game season, they're still going to go to different cities. They still got to travel. They're still going to see their families. There's still a risk of being exposed. And same thing for teams coming into Florida, into St. Petersburg, where right now coronavirus, it's a hot spot for it. It's extreme. It's dangerous if you don't have a hub city kind of plan or a hub kind of plan.
Florida's becoming, some of them are starting to say Florida might become the epicenter of the virus in the country. I don't know if we're at that point yet, but the idea that it could become that isn't unrealistic. And think about it. Imagine if the Blue Jays can't play in Toronto because of the quarantine and border issues, and they decide, all right, where are we going to play? It might be Dunedin's not safe either, and they're going to have to find some college stadium somewhere in like Kansas to play because they have no other choice.
Yeah. I will say this. I will say one thing. It would be the most Bucs thing ever to get Tom Brady, get Rob Gronkowski, have a great draft, great offseason, and then there's no season.
I know we've joked about this before on the show, but it's so true. We have our ceiling is like 13-3, and we might not play. First of all, every Patriots fan is going to stick their middle fingers at Tampa Bay and say, ha, Brady's still our guy. No, they're not. But it would be the most Bucs thing ever. You could argue it's the most Tampa Bay sports thing ever because, yeah, we have some championships, but we're not the luckiest sports town ever. It could be the most Rays thing ever that the MLB season's canceled because this is our best chance to win the World Series in a decade. And the Lightning, second they have a chance to make the playoffs and finally redeem themselves, oh, there's no season. You're still the choke artist. LOL, swept out by Columbus. Yeah. That's how it is with Tampa Bay.
That's the one thing that worries me. Like, I understand the health risks. I understand everything. And if the NFL deems it unsafe to play a season and there's absolutely no chance that it could be done safely, I understand it. Listen, It makes sense. It's hard. We get the logistics are extremely difficult. But I will be the first to tell you, I will be terrible at hiding my disappointment in the fact that there will be no football season just from the hype of this offseason. I mean, we got Brady, we got Gronk. There has to be a season. Please, football gods, if you're listening to us, we need this. Right.
It's like, first of all, if you think about it, if there's no season, Gronk might just go back into retirement and he never plays. You bought that shirt for nothing.
This will be worthless.
Yeah. It's kind of like my Steven Souza shirt. I bought it and he got traded a week later, That feeling, I mean, this is much worse though, but it's, I know how it feels.
But it's just like, how long have we suffered as Bucs fans? There's a 12-year playoff drought going on right now. We don't want it to be 13 just from the fact that there is no football. I mean, please, if no one from the NFL is watching this, but in case someone ever sees this in the NFL, for the love of God, figure it out. This is our chance. Please, just figure it out. Just find a way.
Football gods need to go to Roger Goodell in his sleep and speak to him and say, you will do something smart enough to allow football in the fall.
Yeah, there just has to be a season. Bucs fans need this. We need this. This is our one chance. This is our chance.
Super Bowl,
we have waited. How long have Bucs fans waited for someone like Brady to come knocking on the door and be like, I want to join your team? No one wants to be a Buc.
No, I mean, like, want to know how you end up being a Buc? You got drafted against your will to play for the Bucs, and you might have lucked out that they were good from 96 to 2002 and decided, okay, well, right now it's worth being a Buc. But for most of history, it's get me the Buc out of here.
Warren Sapp, one of the greatest players in franchise history, didn't want to be here. He was mad he got drafted to Tampa. You know why? He grew up in Orlando. He used to go to some of the practices. He knew how bad they were. He said, screw this. I don't want to be here. The Yucks, they're terrible. I'm going to lose for my entire career. He got lucky because he ended up being part of one of the best defenses ever, but he didn't want to be here.
He still left when he could.
He left after, he eventually left. And he retired a Buck. He retired. He went to the Hall of Fame as a Buck. He's known as one of the greatest Bucks ever, Hall of Fame defensive tackle. But at the same time, when was the last time the Bucks have had a superstar? Not even of Brady's caliber, but just in general. I mean, Brady is the superstar of all superstars, and he's like, I want to go to Tampa. That doesn't happen.
The answer is nobody.
Oh my God.
Gronk's only here because Brady's here. By the way, let's not forget, Bo Jackson was drafted #1 overall by the Bucs and decided he would rather go play baseball for the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, but that had nothing to do with the team. That had to do with the owner, Hugh Culverhouse. That's a whole story within himself. When he tried to blow up Bo Jackson's baseball career, that's an entirely different story. That has to do with the owner, not so much the team.
All right. Well, Tampa Bay.
Still, he didn't choose to play here.
Otherwise, but you know what? You learn something new every day.
Yeah, but it's still the Bucs. We missed out on Bo Jackson. We drafted Steve Young and then traded him away. It's like it happens. We get no luck.
We've had 4 quarterbacks leave the Bucs and go on to play and win the Super Bowl. Doug Williams got the MVP after going to the Redskins.
And who was it? It was Steve Young, Trent Dilfer. Who else?
Vinny Testaverde.
He didn't play in a Super Bowl.
I thought he did.
No, he made an AFC Championship with the Jets, but I don't think he ever made a Super Bowl.
I could have sworn he made a Super Bowl.
Maybe it's backup. I don't know, but I don't think he ever started in a Super Bowl. I would put heavy money on that, saying Testaverde never made a Super Bowl, at least as a starter. But either way, so maybe 3. But either way, the Bucs are known for swinging and missing badly, or hitting on a player and then throwing them away. So then, because they weren't that good in Tampa, probably because of bad teams around them and bad coaching, then flourishing somewhere else. That's what happens to the Bucs. They finally get Brady. They get Gronk. There has to be a season, please.
I don't know how many times we can say that, and I'm at the point where I'm going to throw my hat. I think in episode 1 we made this joke. Grant, we started this in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic.
It was a joke, though.
It was a joke. But now suddenly it's like, what if we spoke it into existence? Honestly,
now we're a month away from training camp, and I'm like, God, what if it's true? Because we have assistant coaches, we have players testing positive. Florida's a hot spot. This could go very badly.
Zach, good question. If we spoke into existence, do we cancel this show?
No, we just keep the show going. Then we speak things that we actually want to happen into existence.
Okay, so for example, we speak that the Falcons speak that they cease to exist, and we speak that into existence.
Or when the Saints come back, they go 5-11. We can speak that into existence. The good things. But for this season, I don't want to speak anything into existence. I need keep everyone as safe as possible. Do it and have football. Football plus no coronavirus cases. Make it happen. Give us Brady. Give us Gronk. And give us a chance at the playoffs, for the love of God.
I've already accepted I'm not going to a Bucs game this year.
Yeah.
Get a chance to watch it on TV. I want to know it's at least real, and I'm seeing it on television with my own eyes. Yeah. I mean, there's always 2021 because Brady will still be here for another year, maybe another.
Here's my thing. Does he stay? If there's a whole nother year off of football, he's 40. He's going to be 44 next season. Does he say, forget this, I'm calling it. I'm calling it a career. I made it to 44. I got 6 rings in New England. This whole Tampa experiment, what if it's not for me? It's over. I'm done. What if he says that? He's another year older.
Thank you, Tom.
It's like, thank you for coming and living in Derek Jeter's house, putting on a Bucs practice helmet to go work out at Berkeley Prep for a month, and then skedaddling. We don't want that to happen.
No, there's also going to be massive refunds on season ticket money.
Oh my God.
Happens. Can you imagine, we trended on social media. The Bucs sold out on season tickets. Can you imagine the massive refunds? People are going to throw these jerseys out because at that point they're fake.
We've had sweet, beautiful dreams of Brady connecting to Gronk, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, OJ Howard, Cam Brate. And what if they don't come true? It's an extremely scary thought if you're a Bucs fan. But let's all pray to God tonight, to the football gods, that they come through and we get football. It has to happen, right? It has to happen. It has to happen. Speak this into existence. We're going to manifest good stuff right here. It has to happen.
Yep, right here. Let there be football. Let there be baseball. Amen.
And all of it. And no coronavirus cases. We be good with that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Can this disease just disappear off the planet? Amen.
That's what we want.
I don't know what. We probably will see how well that prayer worked next week. We'll
probably piss the football gods off by sitting there and telling them what to do. But someone had to do it. Listen, we had to let our feelings know. So it's out there, and there's going to be football. We manifesting it. It's going to be good. We got this.
It's going to be good. Listen, we could have been on 620 WDAE doing this exact same event. It doesn't make a difference. We had to do it. It's been said. It's been spoken. It's going to be on the internet. You're actually watching this on the internet right now. What am I saying? There it is. Boom. It's been spoken. So let it be written. So let it be done.
When the coronavirus disappears next week, we'll be trending on Twitter, so that'll be fun. That'll be good.
And then we're gonna have
and they'll be like Zach and Harrison manifesting good stuff right there.
We're gonna become the most subscribed YouTube channel overnight. We're gonna be up PewDiePie and that one other one I keep forgetting what it's called. What is it, like T-Series or something like that?
Yeah. So to our future millions of subscribers, when you see this, just know we called it. That's all I'm saying. Brady and Gronk, we're gonna get them. It's gonna happen. And we're all going to be in the stadium because the coronavirus, hopefully, will be gone. That's not possible. But, you know
it's
what?
Not happening.
We can hope for the best. We got to hope for the best. That's all we can do.
Hope that everything gets better. And you know what, Zach? We'll figure out how much better or worse it gets next week.
Yep. I'll see you next weekend, Harrison.
Yep.
Catch you then, bud.
Catch you then. Everyone, thank you for listening to this episode of SS Tampa Bay Sports Show. I can't believe we've already made it to episode 9. I guess we'll do maybe a 10th episode special next week. And
maybe. You never know.
Yeah, we'll let you know. We'll think about it. But until then, we'll see you.